My name is Simon. My home is in Cyrene, the oldest and one of the most important cities in Rome's North Africa province, in an area that will one day be called Libya. For years, it has been my dream to make the pilgrimage to far-off Jerusalem, to walk the streets of King David and visit the tomb of Judaism's beloved matriarch, Rachel. Above all, it is the dream of every Jew living abroad to pray in the sacred space of Herod's temple, for there we feel the special holy presence of the one true God. For years I have saved and I have planned. Finally, I have enough for my dream to become true. Passover in Jerusalem. Oh, anticipation fills my heart as I prepared to celebrate our liberation from Egypt among so many joyous people. My first morning in the city, I awoke early and I purchased a dove for sacrifice. I was expecting to feel God's presence as I walked into the enormous, majestic temple. How could I not, in this most holy of places? But my heart, it felt exactly as it had when I'd awoke that morning. Expectant, but empty. Waiting. I prayed quickly. I sacrificed my purchased animal, wondering what might still be missing. Though I had never been in Jerusalem on Passover, it seemed that the city brimmed with an unusual excitement. I soon discovered I was right, and that it had to do with a man who was the talk of the town, Jesus from Nazareth. People said that he had worked miracles in the countryside, and that just before Passover he had made a triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Rumors suggested that he was the long-awaited Messiah, the heir of David, here to reestablish the kingdom of Israel. Joyful news for sure if it was true, though I personally hoped he would wait to overthrow Rome's rule until I was safely back at home with my family, for I have a hatred of bloodshed. However, the city's high-pitched expectations were short-lived. I was running an errand when I heard that Jesus had officially been denounced as a fraud and sentenced by the people to crucifixion, a cursed fate according to Jewish tradition. I saw a few people about town weeping and wailing in the streets, and I decided to detour from my market plans and see for myself what the commotion was all about. I would keep my investigation short, so there'd be no chance of getting caught in any crossfire. I could not have known what was going to happen next. To make Jesus an example to other would-be messiahs, the Romans decided to parade him on the longest way possible for exiting the city. And here I found myself on the alley's edge, right in the middle of their new route. I pushed myself to the front where people were gathered. The crowd just in front of me was parting to make room for 3 men, each of them sweating under the heavy crossbeams. One of the criminals staggered and fell right in front of me, the heavy wood of his cross thudding as it hit the ground. Filled with pity and without thinking, I grasped his arm and helped him stand. For a moment, it didn't even occur to me that my association with his cursed fate would make me unclean and therefore unable to participate in Sabbath observances. But then the unthinkable happened. A Roman soldier looked right at me and commanded, "We need to get moving. Pick up this man's cross. You can carry it the rest of the way." My protest died in my throat as the soldier put his hand on the hilt of his sword. Terrified, I heaved the roughly hewn beam of the cross onto my shoulder. The soldier said, "You, lead the rest of them," and he pointed his spear towards me. I suddenly, fighting back tears, nodded. The pathetic parade resumed. Though no one in this city knew me, I was so fearful of being recognized or associated with these criminals. What would people think of me? I'd done nothing wrong. I'm innocent, I wanted to shout. I'm innocent. For a moment, I glanced back at the man directly behind me, whose cross I was carrying. Jesus' steps wavered from the loss of blood, and no doubt from his thirst and his hunger. But that wasn't all. Though free of the wooden cross, he seemed to be carrying some invisible burden. And then it happened. He looked up. He looked straight at me. His eyes were red from sleeplessness, suffering, and sweat. But in them, I sensed an amazing love and a tenderness towards me. Suddenly I felt the very presence of God, the prize which so far had eluded me in this supposed holy of places. My burden seemed to lighten, as his appeared to become unbearable. I hoped in that moment that our silent fellowship and the shoulders that I offered him might provide a touch of comfort in his last hours. I heard several weeks later that on Pentecost, Jesus' disciple preached that his master was the final Passover lamb who had come to take the death that all of us deserved. It seemed then that this unlikely interruption on Good Friday was actually to be the main agenda of my life. You see, I soon became one of his followers. And now I must decide to carry my own cross every day. Neither my long, torturous walk with Jesus to Calvary, nor his painful death there were an accident.